Hey, what's up, you guys, and welcome back to Model Behavior. It's Macy. I'm just going to get this out of the way right now. I am having a really bad hair day. So, the hat made a late appearance. I tried something new when I was curling my hair. I got a professional blowout last weekend because I had some extra credits on ClassPass, and I tried to replicate what she did, and spoiler alert, it did not work, and now my hair's a frizzy mess. So, if you're watching on video, don't let the hair distract you. But I hope you guys are having a fantastic week. It is currently Thursday, and I had some time to sit down and record, and I'm really excited about it. If things look a little bit different with the video setup, I got some new lighting, and I also got a new phone. Hey, yeah, I got paid for that commercial that I filmed back in January, so I already had kind of crunched the numbers for the year because, tax season is upon us. And so to make it easier on myself for next year, for next year's taxes, I was like, you know what? I need a new phone anyways, and I can use it as a tax write off. I've been learning a lot, girl. My taxes were extraordinarily complicated this year. I thought that they were complicated a few years ago when I was like transitioning from going to grad school in Wyoming to working here. And I had 4 jobs in three different states that year. But no, this year was more complicated, and I envision next year is going to be even more complicated. Anyways, I thought of a really funny story when I was recording last episode, and I actually told it on last episode, but my mic randomly stopped working because my old phone was overheating. That was like my 13th reason. And so my mic stopped working for like the last 20 minutes that I was talking and telling this story. And it ended up being okay because the episode was getting really long. But back in December, when my mom was visiting me, we had a very busy schedule, okay? Because she told me that she wanted to go to Eagles games, and she also wanted to go to an Avs game because she had never been to an NHL game before. And so I was like, yep, we're going to go see the Avs because my mom has really started to like hockey because of the fact, and I said the same thing when I first started watching hockey. It's basically just like a faster paced version of basketball plus fighting. But the way that you set up offenses is pretty similar. It also is more interesting because you have more passing angles because you have the boards. Anyways, so my mom has like been really into it as well. So she really wanted to go see an NHL game. So when we went to the game, I can't even remember who they were playing. Like I said, this was a minute ago. When we went to the game, there was a ceremony ahead of time to honor the 1995 Stanley Cup team, which the Avs had just moved to Denver at the time. And so all of the guys that were on the 1995 championship team came to Denver, and they had like this ceremony honoring them. They walked out on the ice and like waved to everybody and everything. And a lot of these guys are around my mom's age. And so when these guys were walking onto the ice, the look on my mom's face, she was just like dumbfounded. She was like, she was in love. Okay. She was positively in love. And I was just laughing so hard. I got the funniest video of her just like staring and smiling. But like, she liked what she saw. Last time I was telling this story, I was like, oh, I don't want to say his name, but I'm just going to call him Schmieder Schmorsberg. That's his not so subtle nickname. So this guy, Schmieder Schmorsberg, had recently gone through a divorce and was like, your mom should shoot her shot. And I was like, no, that's a really great idea. So I told my mom about Schmieder Schmorsberg, and she was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, he was one of the ones that I thought was cute. Anyways, just to give you guys a little bit of context, Schmieder Schmorsberg is arguably one of the greatest NHL players of all time. Okay. Threw this idea out to my mom. I was like, what if you DM him? And there are a couple of reasons why I thought that this might be successful. One, in my mom's age bracket, people aren't sliding into the DMs, okay? Like, that's not really a thing that generation does, much less have an Instagram. My mom is a very adventurous person, okay? She likes to do fly fishing trips. She travels all over the world. She skis, she hikes, and she posts on her Instagram a lot. She's told me before she's like wanted to start a fishing blog, which I thought would be so cute, like a fly fishing blog. And I'm like, that's so fun. So her Instagram is pretty good. Okay. And also, obviously I'm biased, but I think my mom is very pretty. Okay. She's like 5'9". She's like tall and skinny, blonde. And I was just like, you know what, mom? Like, I think your success rate might be kind of high. So we went to this bar that opened up probably about a year ago in Fort Collins now, but I still haven't been there. too much. It's called sugar, salt, sand. So we went up to the rooftop and we both had a little cocktail and we put our heads together. And my mom crafted the best DM. I kind of gave her some guidelines. I said, Mom, like your Instagram has to be on public so that he can look. And then you have to say something funny without seeming like too much of a comedian. And I just had all of these tips, okay, that had worked for me in the past. And so my mom took all of these things to heart and then she sat down and she just crafted her own DM. And let me tell you guys, this was like the funniest DM. And I was looking for a screenshot, but I think I accidentally deleted it in one of my like fits of rage when my phone storage had filled up and I needed more phone storage to record. So I don't have the DM, but like it was good. Okay. So, first of all, she asked something about the jacket. She was like, Where did you get that? And then she also said something about I don't even know. It was so funny. I thought it was amazing. And so she sends the DM and we kind of just like laugh and then that's that. Okay. And so then later that day I was driving my mom to the airport and she kind of looks down at her phone and just kind of laughs. And I was like, Mom, why are you laughing? And she was like, Oh, Schmieder answered. And I was like, No way. What did he say? And so after that, he had like answered her question. He was like, "Oh, like I can find out." And so then they kind of just like started chatting, okay? They started like DMing back and forth. And of course, like I'm telling all of the girls because my mom is now talking to Schmieder Schmorsberg. I have clout now because of that. Okay. So I'm telling all of my girlfriends, I'm telling all of my friends who work in hockey, like, my mom is talking to Schmieder. And they're like, That is so cool. And long story short, the conversation ended up dying out because my mom found out that he lives in Sweden and he doesn't visit as much as she thought he did. It was just this whole thing. So it ended up not happening with Schmieder Schmorsberg. But what I will say, and this is what my mom said too, she was like, That was fun. And I was like, Yeah, shooting your shot is fun. This brings up an interesting conversation that I wanted to talk about today, which is the art of the DM. Now, for those of you that maybe are living in the Stone Age, a DM is a direct message. Usually, when someone talks about sending a DM, it's on Instagram. However, there are other forms of social media that you can send DMs on. It can be on Twitter, or it can even, like in the case of my brother and his fiance, Facebook. My brother literally met his now fiance by sliding into her DMs on Facebook because he's an old man and that's the only form of social media he has. So there are many ways to slide into the DMs, but for the purpose of this episode, we're going to be talking about Instagram DMs because I think that there is an interesting conversation to be had. Now, I think that sending DMs, especially as a woman, is so silly and fun. I think that the stakes are so low and it can just be such a funny thing to giggle about with your friends. And I think that like there are a couple of schools of thought on sending DMs. On one hand, people are like, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And people are just like firing up shots left and right, sending out generic DMs, blah, blah, blah. I am kind of in the second camp where I'm like, I think it is about quality over quantity. Okay. So, the number one piece of advice that I would give to people wanting to slide into someone's DMs is you have to have a reason to slide into their DMs. Maybe you have mutual friends. Maybe you had some shared experience. I know a lot of people like to slide into like celebrities' DMs and like, sure, you can do that. Like, that's more in the camp of just getting shots up. But I think that if you're thinking about logically, like, okay, if I want to actually talk to this person, I have to have a reason to think that, like, he would also actually want to talk to me. And that reason could be as simple as, oh, I'm hot. However, I advise you to choose your DMs carefully because I want you to think about, let's say that this guy that you're DMing actually answers and you guys actually start talking. What are the chances that you guys would actually date IRL? A lot of the times with public figures, it's usually zero because schedules don't align, things like that. And I'm not trying to dissuade you from sliding into, like, I can't even think. I was going to say Justin Bieber, but he's married, girl. I don't want to dissuade you from sliding into your favorite actor's DMs. However, I do want you to think logically about, like, yeah, I'm a fan, but like, would he actually like me? And I think that there's a difference from between DMing from as a fan versus like a legitimate prospect. And I am not telling you this to dissuade you from shooting your shot. I think it is just important to assess the intention behind the DM. I'm not trying to make it this huge, deep thing, but I think that if you slide into someone's DMs as a fan, they're probably not going to answer. Or if they do, it's because they know you're a fan and they just want to bang. Okay. And I'm going to be honest, like, I'm speaking from experience. Don't go down that road, because I think no matter what, you're going to be, if you're actually taking it like seriously relationship wise, you have to think about the long-term potential, and you also have to have some sort of shared ground. Like in the case of Ice Cream Boy, we had mutual friends. Now, also in the case of Ice Cream Boy, we matched on a dating app, so I think that this is kind of irrelevant to the conversation. However, I think that that's a really good example of shooting your shot with someone that you might be able to like actually date, because I think a lot of times when you have mutual friends, it's a really great way of sussing someone out, because you can ask them like, well, what's this person's personality like what are they like when they're not on their best behavior, that kind of thing. So I think that it's a really good place to start. Now, let's say you have a fatty crush on like an Italian tennis player or something, and you don't have any mutual friends. I think that you can still slide into the DMs in a way that is not exhibiting fan behavior. You just have to kind of take it a little bit more slow. Another thing that you have to consider when you're sliding into someone's DMs is your chances. Okay, like what are the chances that the guy is even going to see the DM, and what is his likelihood of responding? Now, I think that that is very much a sliding scale, because like I have had experiences with guys with just a few thousand followers versus guys that have had over 1 million followers. And I don't have a huge following on Instagram. So I don't think that you should be dissuaded by the fact that like, oh, I don't have that many Instagram followers, blah, blah, blah. That's not really what it's about. But I do think that you have to have a good resume. So in my mom's case, she's displayed all the things that she likes to do. She has a lot of hobbies. She has a lot of interests. She takes care of herself. She takes good photos. And I think that you don't have to have like professional pictures on your Instagram, but I do think the second thing that you have to consider is the quality of your resume. And it is very hard in today's day and age when people meet primarily online. I think more couples meet online than in person now, statistically. So I think that you do have to consider the quality of the resume that you're putting forward. I think where some girls tend to go a little overboard is with the editing. Like I've learned, and I've talked about this on here before I started modeling, I really only thought that I looked good from certain angles. I was just like, no, I will only pose this specific way. I only like this specific lighting, blah, blah, blah. And I think you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot when you only have pictures on your Instagram from that specific lighting, or like with tons of filters and things like that. I think it's really important to be a little bit more true to yourself in the way that not every picture you post is going to be from your most flattering angle. But I think that if you look at the picture and you're like, I look happy in that, or like I'm in my element, I'm doing something that I love, then I think that that is what kind of shines through a little bit more, and being a little bit more authentic in your Instagram and a little bit more varied. Okay. So I know as girls, we have tons of different hobbies and interests. So include more of that on your Instagram, because I think that when a guy goes to your page, when he's deciding maybe whether or not he wants to answer your message, he's looking to see if there's any shared interests, or he's looking to see kind of what you're about. And if all you have are like thirst trap selfies or just really posed pictures, the guy is really not going to see who you are as a person. It's kind of like LinkedIn in a way. I hate to say that, but like when you go on your LinkedIn, you want to have your work history, you want to have what you're about, and then if you're open to work, you want to say what types of jobs you're open to. You're kind of conveying that non-verbally on your Instagram. It is kind of your resume of who you are as a person and your interests and hobbies and your friend group and what your lifestyle is like. And I think that if a guy is interested in you, he'll be more interested in the fact that you are coming off as a little bit more genuine and a little bit more personable than if you're just posting the same pictures from the same angles all the time. Does that make sense? That being said, do I think you should have thirst traps on your Instagram? Yes, absolutely. I would be lying to myself if I said I didn't have some thirst traps on my Instagram, because also I think it's important to post pictures that you feel confident in. At the same time, you have to think about, if you're putting forward a resume, you have to have an idea of the type of guy that you want to be with, okay? And then you have to look at your Instagram and say, okay, is my Instagram portraying myself? And granted, you have to be genuine, like you're genuinely into these things and things that you love to do, and you're smiling and you're doing all these things, but is my Instagram going to attract the type of guy that I want? because I have been in this cycle where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm like taking these fire pics and I'm posting them and I'm getting all of this like positive reinforcement from guys, but it's not really the right type of attention. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be with a guy that, you know, only has eyes for me and is interested in me for who I am as a person and getting to know me. And if I only have thirst traps on my Instagram, like, I'm portraying that that's not necessarily something that I'm looking for in a partner. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying this to not be supportive of what you want to post. I truly think you should post whatever you want on your Instagram and not be doing it for somebody. You should be posting stuff because you feel good. But at the same time, if you are planning on sliding into someone's DMs, I think that knowing that this Instagram is going to be their first impression of you, you need to be more conscientious of the vibe that you're putting forth, the way that you're portraying yourself, just so that you have better chances of attracting the right guy. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Again, I think that girls should post what they want on their Instagram. I just think you need to be aware. If you are planning on using your Instagram as a way of dating almost, I think that you need to be mindful of the vibe that you're portraying on your IG. Okay. Now let's get to the fun part. Now we got those points out of the way. We can talk about crafting a DM. Okay. So crafting a DM, I think, is completely up to you, first of all. But the number one thing that I think is important is it has to incite interest in the reader. Okay. So let's go back to just talking abstractly about DMs. I want you to think of yourself as Lady Whistledown. Okay. You are, for all intents and purposes, until this guy looks at your profile, you are anonymous. Okay. You are an anonymous writer and he is your reader, and you need to captivate your audience. Sending a DM is kind of like making soup. You want to have the same base, but then the ingredients that you put in it can be different, okay? You need to come up with a signature line. I'm laughing because it's like, in my experience with the soup theory, I have a signature line that I slide in with. These days, I use my Instagram DMs purely out of mischief. So usually if I'm sending a guy a DM, which happens once in a blue moon, it's because there's some lore associated with this man. And I want to get involved, okay? So my last successful DM, I just want to like give you context, was last weekend. The Jets were playing the Avalanche, and there was this one guy on the Jets that we were talking about and just kind of joking around about. So I DM'd him a picture of him on a fishing trip from his own page. And I said, needed this. Time in nature is so important. And he answered. And I think that that just makes it so much funnier. So anyways, just to review, if you're shooting your shot via DM, it doesn't really matter, honestly, what you say or who you're saying it to as far as following count. I think you just need to have a good resume. And then as far as choosing your subject, it'd be helpful if you have a reason to message this person. Like if there's something you guys have in common or mutual friends or something like that. I think that your chances of actually initiating a potential dating relationship with this person are very high. If you're just DMing just to be mischievous, I think you can shoot your shot with anybody. I wanted to tell you this story about my mom in Schmieder Schmorsburg because like for a while there, my mom was talking to one of the greatest NHL players of all time. And I just think that we can all learn from her confidence. And I think that you have to be okay with rejection and you have to take it on the chin and keep going. And I think that you just have to have confidence in yourself and you have to, you know, portray yourself in a truthful, genuine light on your Instagram. That being said, Instagram is never going to be real. Like people are always posing the way they look the best, that kind of thing. But I do think like taking your content a little less seriously can be very helpful if you're planning on using that as a potential dating resume. My last point with DMs is the content. Okay, so the content of the DM really doesn't matter as long as it's not boring. You can't just say hey or like hi or like what's up. You have to do something that incites conversation. So we're going back to being Lady Whistledown. How do you incite curiosity in your viewer? In your reader? How do you incite curiosity in your reader? Does what you say matter? No. It really does not matter. That being said, I think you have to be strategic about the timing and the risk associated with sending the DM. But if you have a good resume, like if you have a good Instagram, if you feel confident that you're portraying yourself in a genuine like light and you feel happy in the pictures and things like that, and you're portraying things that you like to do on a regular basis, and you're actually doing them, being genuine about it, not just like posting what you think that the guy would like, but stuff that you actually like to do, then I think that your chances of initiating a conversation with the right guy are very high. It's kind of like in basketball, we talk a lot about shot selection. If you're just shooting shots up all the time, let's say you're a guard, if you're shooting threes all the time with no discretion, like your percentage is going to be pretty low. Okay. Will you make some eventually? Yes. However, like I said, I am in the camp of quality over quantity. I think that shot selection is I think that shot selection is important when you're considering DMing. Okay, so you have to choose at the right time. There has to be a window of availability, and you also have to shoot up a quality shot. Okay, have good form, like have good vision. As far as what that good form is, it's a little bit less strict than basketball. Okay, like your form can be whatever feels genuine to you. Like it doesn't have to be anything deep or profound. Just make it yours, okay? And I think that that ultimately will lead to success in shooting Instagram DMs. So that being said, if you want to shoot a low percentage, you can. Like that's fine. I just don't prefer to function that way. I think that if you are approach sending DMs on Instagram with a little bit more intentionality, I think that your chances of success are going to be really high. They're going to be higher than you think. And I do not think number of Instagram followers matters. It truly does not. So do not let that dissuade you. I think it's just the quality of the shots that you take. And I think we can learn a lot from my mom, because my mom for a second there was messaging back and forth with the arguably one of the best NHL players of all time. And I'm like, you know what? If Kara can do it, so can you. With that being said, this week, I want you to take a calculated risk, okay? It doesn't necessarily have to be shooting your shot in a DM, okay? It can be something just in general, like maybe saying hi to the cute barista, or striking up a conversation while you're waiting for your coffee, or I don't know, girl, or just like talking to someone you wouldn't normally talk to. I think that you should spend this week thinking about how you're going to take a calculated risk, how you're going to shoot your shot, because you never know, girl. And at the end of the day, it is true. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott, Macy Ricketts. All right, guys. I hope you guys have a great week, and I can't wait to talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye.